earth did I race a 5k in the depths of marathon training, untapered, the week after running a 98-mile week, and a 5k of all distances? Like, it's the polar opposite of a marathon. I'm gonna get into that, and I'm gonna let you know exactly how it went in today's race recap video of the Bristol Track Club 5k. Now, before I get into this year's Bristol Track Club 5k and how it went, I need to take you back, not even to last year's race in fact, but the year before, when I was meant to do this mysterious, flat, fast, boomerang-shaped 5k course at a random cycle track down in Bath. And I actually forgot that I was meant to do this race in 2021. I've just gone onto the Bristol Track Club Instagram and looked at our messages, and it says here on the 10th of April 2021, I've messaged them saying, "Hi, can I tentatively register my interest for the 5k please?" They've sent over all the info, and sadly I ended up pulling out before the event due to an illness, so didn't get to experience it that year, but I did get to experience it in 2022, 2 months after finishing my first marathon in Seville. It was actually my second race back, starting the early summer season, if you like. So a couple of weeks before, I did the Battersea 5k, which was the comeback 5,000, which was one of the first races on the track post-COVID era where you could have spectators getting in amongst it all. Brilliant atmosphere, highly recommend that race as well. Around 16:10 at that track meet, and then 2 weeks later I went to Odd Down to run the Bristol Track Club 5k, to run the exact same time, 16:10. However, the 16:10 at Bristol Track Club's 5k last year was worth a lot more than the 16:10 I ran at Battersea 2 weeks prior, because it was a literal hurricane. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it was very, very windy. I can remember Daniel and I really struggling with the microphone, a lot of the audio, just the sound in general across that video was unusable. Then I was with her until about 3.5k, and it made for quite a difficult race. I mean, I came second last year. It was a great event, really well organised, but the wind for me was the overpowering core memory from that day. And I think driving back from that race, I actually said to Daniel, we're not coming back here, not after that. Like, it's just too windy. It's just where this race is in a very open field. The wind's always going to cut through here. Like, I'm not going to come back here. It wasn't fun. But I'd clearly forgotten about the experience with the wind and swearing that I would never go back, because here I am talking about the race that I did a few days ago. I came back. Was willing to give Odd Down another chance to not be a wind fest and do the race again. If you've seen the race video, you'll have heard me talk about every race having a purpose. And I had people on the day come up to me and ask me why I was racing a 5k, because they know that I'm training for the Copenhagen Marathon, which is in about 4 weeks now. And you know, a lot of people don't race in their marathon block. Some people do, but typically people will choose a half marathon either to race it all out or to race at marathon pace and to get used to that for a longer distance. Or maybe they'll drop it down to a 10k, kind of just under a quarter of the distance of the marathon. 5k is less traditional, but look, I love racing. Racing is a huge part of why I do this sport. It's what got me into it. And even if the distance is so far away from the top goal of what you're training for, it can be useful in your training. And that was the thinking with this one. I knew the event, I knew it was really well organised. It's one of those up and coming events. They tried to get a lot of hype around it beforehand. They've got food fans, they've got music, they've got commentators, there's a live stream, there's prize money, just doing good things and bringing the events into the 21st century a little bit. And I knew that I had a good time last year, apart from the wind. So I decided to throw myself in the mix, but obviously the main thing that I'm working towards at the moment is the Copenhagen Marathon. So with that in mind, what would be the point in me tapering for this 5k? Let's just imagine I do taper, bring down my mileage for a few days leading up to the 5k, and maybe I run close to a PB as a result. I've got mileage banked, quite a decent few weeks and months of training behind me. Maybe I run 15:40. Great, 4-second PB. Come marathon day, when I'm in Copenhagen on that start line, having tapered and run 15:40 for a 5k is going to make absolutely no difference to how I run the marathon. Having not tapered and run what I did, which was 16:03, I think, and then done a session after the race and continued to do a very big week. I totaled 88 miles at the end of last week. That's going to mean that I will run faster in Copenhagen. So I knew that going into the race, and it's important to contextualize it so that you don't kind of go in with that all or nothing mentality of I must run a PB or nothing because that's success. In this instance, that wouldn't be success. If somehow miraculously I did run a PB on tired legs and a really heavy week, then wow, we're really onto something, but quite unrealistic for that to happen. I was really happy to run 16:03, and I was really happy to get straight stuck into a session afterwards as well, because that's what I needed to top up the intensity for that week, also add the volume in, and complete another really solid week of marathon training. But I'll talk about the race itself because I really enjoyed this race. They ran things a little bit differently this year compared to last year. Whereas last year they had the elite men and the elite women in the same physical wave or race, we're on the same start line together. They changed that this year in my wave, which was the elite women and some of the masses of the men. They made sure that the way that the times were seeded, or the predicted finish times were seeded, meant that the woman that won the elite women's race would actually be the outright winner of that race and get to break the tape, which is quite nice because in road races a lot of the time when it's mixed genders and you've got us all running in together, that doesn't happen. And I can remember at a Reading half marathon, for example, a couple of years ago, I won, but I had a dude who was like 6 feet in front of me, and it made it really difficult for them to get the tape out, and I kind of didn't get to break the tape, and the moment was all kind of a little bit messy. And the way that they did it and spent a lot of time to make sure that the women would be at the front of this field was really well done. Sometimes, and the flip side of that is, it's nice to be in the mix and have guys that can help you out as well when you're running in a pack, because there'll be less women at the front, and you know, if the men are further back you get less help, I suppose. But that wasn't the case. We did have pacemakers as well, which was a really nice touch. There was company either way. The start was absolutely nuts. For someone that's used to kind of training in those marathon tempo zones at the moment, it was a bit of a shock to the system, thanks to my good friend Kira McGeehan. Kira is my teammate. She's an absolute inspiration. If you don't know who she is, she's the Irish record holder for 1500 meters. She came second at the Commonwealth Games last year in 1500, second at Europeans, and she won the Diamond League. So she's pretty quick. She's an awesome teammate to have, and I feel really lucky to say that she's one of my friends as well. I'm sure that Kira won't mind me saying that pacing over the longer distances isn't naturally a strong point to her. She's an 800 and 1500 girl.
I don't know how to pace a 5k.
We were talking about this in our warm-up, and I said, just so you know, Kira, if you go out like a rocket, I'll be waving at you from behind. And that's what happened. She flew off the start line. She did have company. Ellie Wallace, who came second, was right behind her as well. But they had a pacemaker who was going to 15:30 time. And that makes me laugh actually, because when I was warming up with Kira, she told me that and was like, Jesus, they said the pacemaker's going at 15:30, and the way that she said it made it sound, to me at least, that she was a bit daunted by them going at 15:30 pace, which is funny when you hear what time she finished in. So anyway, I hung back as Kira, Ellie, and the pacemaker and a few other lads absolutely stormed off the start line. And I can remember counting backwards at roughly 800 meters in, and I think I was maybe 5th or 6th female. Started off conservatively. That's how I like to run, and I know that I race well off starting off conservatively and building into it, because I can always trust my strength and trust my endurance to do that for me. And the way that you start, you turn this corner, and then it's a very long, slightly downhill stretch before you turn the corner towards the finish, loop back around yourself, and then you come all the way up this kind of slight, gradual, very long incline. It's 3.5 laps, and you've got the sun behind you on the way down, sun in your face on the way up, and this year the wind was neither here nor there, so very nice. I went past the finish for the first time and rounded that relatively tight corner. We were still quite packed together, and I actually got clipped on my shoulder by a guy who was taking the corner quite tight. Someone behind him, I think, had clipped his foot. Stayed on my feet, crucially, And then I started to build coming up the hill. Started to pick people off. I think I moved into 4th position in the female field at that point in time. And I was feeling really strong coming up the incline section. There was loads of spectators lining the fence as you came up that hill, which was really nice. And lots of people cheering my name. More people than I expected cheering my name, which was lovely. Just built good momentum coming up that hill. Came through the start for the first time. 1 lap. I think by the time I came past the start, I'd got myself into 3rd place. I was quite a way back from Ellie and Kira because they were up ahead with a pacemaker storming down that hill, but nice to get myself into a podium position anyway. And it continued like that for the next lap and a half. I was just building, picking off the men, feeling strong, and honestly having no idea what pace I was running. I heard my watch beep at every mile, didn't look at it. Well, I say my watch, it wasn't my watch because I forgot my watch, left it at home. I was wearing Daniel's watch. Anyway, I refused to look at my watch when it beeped because what do I care what pace I'm running? This race is not about a finish time. I didn't need any kind of positive or negative reinforcement from the watch, so I heard it beep and just completely blocked out the temptation to look at my watch. But I felt good and I felt like I was running quick. Sometimes you feel like that and you're actually not running quick, which happened to me at the 10K in Squirrel. But I was feeling good. And we get to the last lap. So I come through the finish funnel and I've done 2.5 laps, just got 1 full lap to go. And that's when the long, gentle incline felt like a very long, harsh incline because 5K is such a burner. You feel it in your legs, you feel it in your lungs. You're running at this max speed that you can only maintain for a very short amount of time. I was hurting at that point. I could feel that my form was starting to collapse a little bit, which happens when you get tired. I could feel that my head was kind of starting to go to this typical place on the side where it's not really happening. But the support got me up the hill, rounded the penultimate corner up by the start, and the good thing about that is that you know it's all downhill from there, so you've got roughly 600 to 800 meters to go. It's a nice downhill stretch with 1 more corner. And the 16-minute pacemaker, actually, whoever you are, if you're out there watching, thank you so much. He was running alongside me or just out in front a little bit and calling back and just giving me encouragement, cheering me on, telling me how far I had left, saying, come on Philly, you gotta dig deep now. And that's really nice. I mean, the guy's running a 5K in 16 minutes himself. I really appreciate that, and it definitely helped remind me that I was nearly there, and you've just got to go to the arms in the last few gears, powered down that hill, around the last corner. I say it's not about the time, but it's always frustrating when you're close to a big marker. And I could see the clock counting upwards as I approached the finish from 15:58, 15:59, 16 minutes, and I knew I wasn't just quite gonna get it because I'm not gonna run a sub 10 second last 100 meters. Crossed the line in 16:03, and you know, happy days. I came 3rd, got on the podium behind 2 amazing athletes. Kira won the race in 15:25 with Ellie Wallace slightly further back at that point. I think she'd suffered for going with the hot pace that Kira had at the start, but absolute fair play to her for going with it and making a race of it. You've got the usual carnage at the finish line, people collapsing on the side, a couple people dry heaving. Kira came over to me and gave me a massive big hug. She's the most gracious winner, congratulating me on my performance before I could even get a word in edgeways to say well done to her. And she was also the first to remind me to crack on with my jog because I had a session to do.
Get your fucking training session.
Yeah, I need to go for a jog.
Pretty much immediately after finishing the race, I had a 1 mile easy jog, which wasn't that easy actually because Kira came with me for it and we were both high on that post-race euphoria. It was more like a steady mile, and then I got straight into 2x2 miles at marathon pace. 2 minutes recovery between the 2 reps, and I'm gonna blame the atmosphere for this, but I ran a little bit too quick for those 2x2 mile reps. Was trying to stay within the kind of low 5:40 windows. Could have happily just done them at 5:45. It's post-race, I don't need to set the world on fire. But the men's race had just started, the crowds were still there. People were, I think, a little bit confused as to why I was still running. I took my number off and made sure that I was right at the back of the elite men's field so that I wasn't getting in their way or anything, kept it wide as I went around the corners. But it was great. The sun was coming down, it was still warm, the atmosphere was alive, the men's race was hotting up, and I was right at the back of that, just grinding away, getting these 2 mile reps in that went by really quickly actually. So if you guys could all just attend all of my sessions, line the course, cheer me on, bring the vibes, that would be great. And it just shows you that spectators, creating an atmosphere, and just people that attend these events and the people that organize these events, you know, really make them. You genuinely get a performance enhancement from all of that stuff that, you know, if it wasn't there and it was just a bunch of lonely runners running around a cycle track with no one there to watch, no one to play music or ring cowbells, the times would be slower, undoubtedly. That goes for post-race sessions as well. So what did I run for this session? Let's have a look at the splits. First 2 miles, I split 5:36, 5:41. I'll put the K pace on here for all of you people that are gonna have a go at me for running in miles in the comments. And then the second one was 5:38, 5:42. And I also took a drink on in that second 2 mile rep as well, just to get another practice of taking on the drinks. And I felt great afterwards. Totted up the day with 16.8 miles. Again, the Ks will be down here. Big day. All in all, the sun was very much down by the time I finished. I actually got kicked off the course because I was taking too long. Just love running too much. It was great to see plenty of other YouTubers at the race as well. Ben, huge shout out to Ben for having a cracking run. I think he came 5th or 6th in his race. Massive PB. Matt Rees, the Welsh runner. Kelly was there. Kellogg's on the run. Andy, the FOD runner, was also there. It was like a YouTubers convention. We actually were standing around in a circle at one point before my race, just laughing at the fact that we were all there, and it was really nice to see each other and meet. For some of us, we hadn't met for the first time before, and you know these people online and you kind of do the same things, but it's really cool when you can come together in real life. Great day to tire the legs out, great day to just enjoy a race, have fun, mix in with it, meet people, see some friendly faces, meet some of you lovely people that watch the channel. It's lovely to see people in real life that watch these videos and just to hear people say that they watch them and that they enjoy them, because it just means a lot. It's nice to hear when someone compliments your work, and was just the cherry on top of a very wholesome day of racing and running. And love the grind.